On a rainy night, a powerful CEO sat alone, drowning in silence, unaware that his life was about to change forever. Just a few feet away, two little girls huddled beneath soaked newspapers on a park bench, whispering, "Please don't call anyone, we're not bad." Their words pierced the night and his heart. In that fragile moment, wealth, power, and loneliness meant nothing. What mattered were the trembling hands of children who had lost everything, and the choice of a man who had lost himself. This is not just a story about chance. It is about love found in the unlikeliest places, about broken souls becoming whole again, and about the family we build when the world gives us none. Stay with us, and let this story remind you of the miracles hidden in everyday life. Subscribe now to Hidden Echo Stories, because every story deserves to be heard. Lucas Harrington sat on a damp bench in Stonebridge Park, the drizzle slipping through the sharp fabric of his tailored navy suit. His birthday had arrived without celebration, and though messages had appeared on his phone, he ignored them. One from his sister, another from the mother of the woman he once planned to marry. He swiped them away, the glow of the screen fading as quickly as his interest. The city was buzzing at a distance, but here, surrounded by the gray clouds and the soft drizzle, he felt as though the world had stopped. Loneliness was no longer a passing feeling in his life. It had become his permanent companion, a shadow following him through corporate towers and silent penthouses. He leaned forward, elbows on his knees, staring into nothing. The leaves scattered across the wet ground looked like fragments of promises that once meant something. The silence pressed in until a faint cough disrupted it. His head turned, scanning the haze. Movement flickered near a worn picnic table. At first he thought it was trash, something blown against the concrete. But as he took another step, his eyes sharpened. Two small figures lay curled together beneath a pile of plastic and newspapers. A rush of adrenaline struck him. He stood, unsure what he was seeing. His polished shoes crunched against gravel as he moved closer. There they were, two little girls, no older than 6 or 7, dressed in thin, soaked clothing. One wore a pink jacket with a missing sleeve, the other a hoodie that sagged around her shoulders, far too large for her small frame. The older child clutched the younger protectively, her arms wrapped tightly around her. A worn stuffed dog with floppy ears lay between them, damp and frayed. Lucas knelt down, his breath caught in his throat. The older girl stirred, her wide eyes meeting his. There was no fear in them, only exhaustion. She whispered with quiet defiance, "Please don't call anyone. We are not bad." Her words cracked something inside him. He had not realized he was holding his breath until it left in one heavy sigh. Up close he could see how pale their faces were, how the cold had painted their cheeks pink, how the younger girl's lips carried a faint blue shade. He reached out instinctively, not for his phone, not for an umbrella, but for the fragile, icy hand of the smaller child. Her tiny fingers were limp, but real, grounding him in a way his wealth and success never had. "What is your name?" he asked softly. The older girl hesitated, her eyes flicking toward the falling rain before she answered. "Lily, that's Hazel, she is 6. I am older by 2 minutes." His throat tightened. He asked about their mother, and Lily's voice dropped to a whisper. "She did not wake up yesterday." The world around him disappeared. No board meetings, no empire of glass towers, no calls demanding his presence. Only this park, this bench, and 2 children who had no one left. Lucas swallowed, the weight of their reality pressing harder than any contract he had ever signed. He lifted Hazel gently into his arms, her head limp against his chest. Lily followed without protest, her sneakers squishing through wet leaves, one small hand clinging to his coat as if it were the only solid thing left in the world. When his driver pulled the car forward, his mouth hung open in shock. Lucas bundled both girls inside, wrapping his own coat around their frail bodies. His voice was steady when he gave the order, "Children's urgent care. Now." The ride was silent except for the hum of tires and the shallow sound of Hazel's breathing against him. Lily sat upright, alert, her small hands folded neatly as if discipline was all she had left. Lucas's mind raced. He had built a life around control, around never being vulnerable. Yet here, with two little strangers clinging to him, he felt something he had not felt in years, the undeniable pull to stay. At the clinic, nurses rushed them into an exam room. Hazel was placed under warm lights, IV fluids dripping into her fragile arm. A nurse whispered that if they had stayed outside another hour, the consequences would have been unthinkable. Lucas's chest ached with what was left unsaid. He had found them just in time. Lily stood silently near her sister's bed, refusing to cry, refusing to ask for anything. When Lucas leaned close and told her they would make sure Hazel was all right, she only nodded, too old in her stillness, too weary for her years. She accepted crackers from a nurse, split them carefully, offering the larger piece to Hazel. Lucas watched, his jaw tight, unable to look away from the quiet resilience of a child forced to carry more than she should. Then Hazel stirred, her weak voice breaking the silence. "Mommy said if we stick together, we will be okay." Those words struck him harder than any loss he had carried before. They pierced through the walls he had built around his heart, walls he thought unbreakable. Looking at them, two children clinging to survival with nothing but each other, he realized something. He was no longer a man hiding from the world. He was a man standing at a crossroads. That night, as rain streaked across the clinic windows, Lucas made a silent vow. He would not walk away. He would not let them slip back into the shadows of the city. For the first time in years, his loneliness was interrupted not by business or distractions, but by two fragile lives who had unknowingly given him a reason to feel again. He looked at Lily, then Hazel, and whispered to himself words no one else could hear. "I will stay." Lucas sat in the corner of the small clinic room, the rain sliding down the window in thin silver lines. Hazel lay beneath a blanket, her tiny chest rising and falling more evenly now. Lily sat close by, her small hand resting on her sister's arm, her gaze steady and unyielding. She did not weep, she did not beg. She simply stayed there, quiet and watchful, like a soldier keeping guard. Lucas found himself staring at them both, unable to turn away. For years, he had measured his life in contracts signed and buildings erected. But here, he was measuring every breath of a child he had known for less than an hour. When the nurse left them with snacks and juice boxes, Lily accepted the crackers but not the drink. She broke the crackers neatly, offering Hazel the larger piece, even though her own stomach growled. That single gesture, so small and so instinctive, cut through Lucas like a blade. Children should not be forced into sacrifice, yet this child carried herself with the composure of someone twice her age. Later that night, when the doctors assured him Hazel would recover with warmth and rest, Lucas escorted the girls out into the dark parking lot. His driver opened the door, but Lucas hesitated. He was not taking them to a shelter, not handing them to strangers. Instead, he drove to a discreet hotel and booked a suite with 2 bedrooms and a kitchen. He did not ask for luxury. He asked for safety. Inside, Lily tucked Hazel into bed, smoothing her damp hair with quiet determination. Lucas watched the scene with an ache in his chest, recognizing a child trying to carry the weight of a mother. He sat by the window long after they fell asleep, the city lights flickering in the distance. His phone buzzed with reminders, meetings, obligations that once seemed urgent, but none of it mattered now. He looked over at the girls and realized he had been outrunning grief, hiding inside glass towers, but tonight he was being asked to show up. And for the first time in years, he wanted to. Morning came gray and heavy. Lucas had not slept, but he felt strangely awake. Hazel stirred with a weak smile, Lily still guarded but watchful. Over breakfast, she looked at him and asked bluntly, "Why are you helping us?" He swallowed hard before answering. "Because once someone needed me and I did not show up. I will not make that mistake again." Lily studied him, her eyes older than her years, then simply said, "You are here now." As the days passed, something shifted. Lucas arranged for food, warm clothes, and comfort that stretched beyond mere necessity. He called an old friend, Bernice, the woman who had once kept his home in order. She arrived with blankets, scarves, and a warmth that filled the cold apartment. Hazel melted into her arms immediately. Lily was cautious, but even she softened under Bernice's gentle care. Lucas watched the girls laugh over grilled cheese sandwiches, their giggles echoing through a space that had once been silent. For the first time in years, he laughed with them, not the hollow sound of boardroom banter, but a laugh that reached his chest. Then came the complication he did not expect. Papers arrived one evening, delivered in a plain envelope. Carl Duncan, the biological father of Lily and Hazel, was filing for custody. Lucas read the words again and again, fury rising in him. Where was this man when the girls were hungry? Where was he when their mother lay sick and dying? How dare he appear now? He slammed the papers onto the table, his mind already racing. But fury was not enough. He needed proof, and proof arrived in ways he had not anticipated. Photos surfaced, Alina with bruises, reports from a clinic where Carl had shown up drunk, threatening, violent. Testimonies from people who had seen his cruelty firsthand. Lucas sent it all to his attorney with one line: "We fight with this." That night Lily found him staring at the documents. She curled into the armchair beside him, her voice quiet but sharp. "You got bad news, did you?" He turned to her, uncertain how much truth to give. Finally, he said, "Someone from your past wants to take you away, but I will not let that happen." Her eyes shimmered, though she refused to cry. "People leave," she whispered. "We are used to it." He crouched before her, taking her hands gently. "Not me, not while I am breathing." For the first time, she leaned her forehead against his, the fragile trust of a child who wanted to believe. The days that followed felt like walking a tightrope. Lucas balanced legal meetings, court filings, and the fragile daily routines of two little girls who needed stability. Breakfasts became a ritual, with Hazel stacking waffles like towers and Lily sketching superheroes at the table. Bernice filled the kitchen with warmth, but it was Lucas who found himself lingering there, sipping coffee while the girls filled the air with chatter. He caught himself smiling more, laughing more, and feeling something that both terrified and healed him. One evening, Lily handed him a drawing. It was simple, 3 figures beneath a sun, one tall, one medium, one small. The tallest wore a cape. "You are not Superman," she told him quietly, "but you stayed. That is kind of better." Lucas folded the picture carefully, tucking it inside his jacket pocket. His throat tightened, his heart both heavy and light. For a man who once lived behind glass walls and polished boardrooms, he was discovering something he had never built before: a home. Not a house, not an empire, but a home made of laughter, burnt waffles, bedtime whispers, and the simple truth of staying. And though the fight for custody loomed ahead, he knew one thing with absolute certainty: he was not walking away. The courtroom was colder than Lucas expected. The walls were painted in bland colors, the lights buzzing faintly overhead, and the air carried the sterile scent of old paper and floor polish. It was not a place designed for hearts. It was a place where lives were rearranged in minutes, sometimes permanently, by people who barely knew the story. Lucas sat at the front, his hands folded, his expression calm but steady. Across the aisle sat Carl Duncan, the biological father of Lily and Hazel. He avoided eye contact, tugging at his collar as if it were strangling him. Hazel was not present that day. She was back at the apartment, coloring under Bernice's watchful care, her stuffed dog never leaving her side. But Lily was there, seated beside their attorney, her small body too stiff for someone her age. She clutched the stuffed dog with both hands, her eyes darting between Lucas and the judge. Carl spoke first. He told the court about his mistakes, about how he had turned his life around. He claimed sobriety, claimed steady work in construction, claimed he wanted to be the father his daughters deserved. He used words like second chance and fresh start. But when the judge asked him simple questions, the cracks showed. "What is Lily's middle name?" she asked. Carl hesitated, guessed wrong. The silence that followed was sharper than any gavel. "What is Hazel's birthday?" He lowered his gaze, stammering, "I was not there when she was born." Lucas watched quietly, his chest tight. This man across from him was not a father reclaiming lost children. He was a stranger trying to claim something he had never truly known. When it was Lucas's turn, he stood. He wore a plain navy suit, without the armor of luxury, without the symbols of power. His voice was steady, unshaken. "I am not their biological father," he began, "but I am the one who found them cold and alone, sleeping under a park bench the night after their mother died. I did not plan to become anything to them, but I stayed. I stayed because no one else did." He paused, his gaze flicking toward Lily without needing to name her. Family is not about blood. It is about who shows up when it matters, who stays when leaving would be easier. It is about the person who learns what "I had a bad dream" sounds like at 2 in the morning, the person who folds tiny socks that never match, and the person who shows up every single day. He sat down, the silence around him louder than any words. Even Carl shrank a little in his seat. Then came Lily's turn. She entered a private witness room shielded from the courtroom by a one-way glass panel. She carried a folder in her lap. Inside was a drawing, crayon lines bright and uneven. 3 stick figures stood beneath a crooked sun. One tall, one medium, one small. The tall one wore a cape. Above it, in child's handwriting, she had written, "My family, Lily." The judge asked her gently, "Who are these people?" Lily pointed without hesitation. "That is me, Hazel, and Mr. Lucas." "Why did you draw this?" "Because people keep asking if we want to go live with the man from before, but he is not in this picture." "Why not?" "Because this is my family now. Mr. Lucas did not replace anyone, he just did not leave." The judge said nothing more. She simply closed the folder and nodded softly. An hour later, everyone returned to the main courtroom. Lily slipped into the seat beside Lucas, her small hand instinctively reaching for his. The judge adjusted her glasses, looked between the 2 tables, and spoke with quiet finality. "In light of the testimony and submitted evidence, the court grants full legal guardianship of Lily and Hazel Brooks to Mr. Lucas Harrington. Visitation rights for Mr. Duncan are denied pending further review." The gavel fell softly, almost respectfully, but the sound of Lily's exhale beside him was louder than anything else. Carl stood abruptly, storming out without a glance. Lucas did not watch him go. He looked at Lily, her eyes wide, uncertain if she could smile. "You did good," he whispered. She nodded, her hand gripping his tighter. Outside the courtroom, the afternoon sunlight spilled across the steps. Lily tugged at his coat sleeve, her voice barely audible. "Do you think everything will stay like this?" Lucas crouched to her level, his forehead resting gently against hers. "I do," he said firmly, "because I am not going anywhere." In the weeks that followed, their new life unfolded in small, imperfect, beautiful ways. The apartment became filled with warmth, drawings taped to the walls, laughter echoing down the hall. Hazel wore mismatched socks and declared herself queen of the living room. Lily slowly allowed herself to smile more, her sketches evolving from lonely figures to bright, messy families. Bernice baked muffins and scolded Lucas for burning toast, but her presence stitched their days together with steadiness. One evening, the girls presented him with a drawing to hang on the fridge. 3 hands, one large, one medium, one small, linked inside a heart. Beneath it, in Hazel's careful block letters, it read, "Forever Family." Lucas pressed the paper onto the fridge with the strongest magnet he could find, his throat too tight for words. Hazel climbed into his lap without asking. Lily leaned against his side, and for the first time, Lucas felt the weight of loneliness lift from his shoulders. The man who once built towers of steel and glass was now building something far greater, something unbreakable. Not a company, not an empire, but a home. There are moments in life that change us forever, moments that appear quietly, without warning, and leave us transformed in ways we never imagined. For Lucas Harrington, that moment began on a rain-soaked night when 2 little girls whispered, "Please don't call anyone. We are not bad." In that instant, his wealth, his power, his loneliness, all of it became meaningless compared to the fragile hope in their eyes. He had every reason to walk away. He could have left them to the system, turned back toward his empire of glass and marble, and convinced himself it was not his responsibility. But he did not. He chose to stay. And in choosing to stay, he discovered something that no amount of success had ever given him: a family. What began as an act of compassion grew into something deeper, something permanent. Through sleepless nights, burnt waffles, drawings taped to the fridge, and small hands clutching his own, Lucas found that family is not about blood. It is about presence. It is about the quiet vow to show up, again and again, even when it is hard, even when it hurts, even when the world gives you every reason to turn away. The courtroom battle, the tears held back, the fragile trust built through simple acts, these were not just events in a story. They were the forging of bonds that no gavel could break. And when Lily and Hazel finally placed a drawing on the refrigerator that read "Forever Family," it was more than art. It was a declaration, a truth carved not by circumstance but by love. For Lucas, the man who once hid behind glass towers, that drawing was more valuable than any contract he had ever signed. It was proof that even the loneliest hearts can be saved, that broken lives can be rebuilt, and that love, once chosen, has the power to heal what was thought unfixable. And perhaps that is the message we are all meant to carry from this story. That family is not always the one we are born into. Sometimes it is the one we build with open hands, open hearts, and the courage to stay when others would leave. So if this story touched something inside you, if it reminded you of the resilience of love and the beauty hidden in unexpected places, we invite you to join us. Subscribe to Hidden Echo Stories, where every tale is a reminder that hope is never truly lost, and that even in the darkest nights, love has a way of finding us.